You've written a lot of very thoughtful articles recently on the website about fence straddling pastors, about the pew sitters, and about the relationships and the roles of them, and been critical, and I think in a very meaningful way, of what's going on in churches right now. Your latest article, Good Shepherds, Political Pastors Equal Good Shepherds, I think is particularly pertinent. Go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
Yes. So since we get challenged about this all the time with pastors becoming political, and we've talked a little bit about those comments that we often get, and should pastors even be involved in politics? So to say that political pastors, do they equal good shepherds? Well, the term pastor means shepherd. That's where we get our title, pastor, from. And I know we have different churches with different structures and different leadership structures, but in general, as we think of a pastor or a leader of a church, that pastor is a shepherd. And that's what the original Greek term means.
Yep.
So when you think about what a shepherd is and what a shepherd does, a shepherd is not a sissy. A shepherd is not, a shepherd has a lot of capabilities and has to exhibit some masculinity in order to do his job properly.
Well, he's a guard, isn't he?
He is. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But when you think about this day and age when the scripture was written and how shepherding was done, a little bit different from how we might do it here in the United States today. But they were literally out in the wild, and they would be out in the fields away from home for long periods of time with no assistance, no help. They had to take everything they needed with them. They had to protect against any kind of wild animal, anything they would encounter out there. So they had to go prepared, equipped, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So when you think about a pastor as a shepherd, the characteristics that we see here, which are not exhaustive, there are other characteristics, and I would love for those people who are listening to go on the website and comment some of those other characteristics that should be present for a pastor. We know the qualifications of a pastor, they're listed in Scripture, but when you think of this pastor as a shepherd, there's a few things that come to mind that I wanted to talk about. And all of these are characteristics that should be in each of us as men. And it's important that God set up this structure in the home. He set up this structure in the church. And so if a man is going to lead the house of God, he's got to lead well in his own house. Scripture tells us that.
That's right.
So he's got to be an example of what masculinity really is. And of all places today, in the church today, how many of us think of a pastor as being masculine?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, pastors have been so feminized over the last several decades. And we'll talk about a few of those. Go ahead.
I could talk about it right now, about how they've tried to feminize Jesus Christ himself and all the way to the pastor, but I'm not going to derail this. But yeah, absolutely, you got your finger right on something that's huge right now.
Yeah, and you've had that in some of the comments, I think. You've been fighting with some of those people who think that Jesus was some type of sissy and a pacifist.
Yeah.
And so they've made pastors this feel-good.
Absolutely.
Like a Dr. Phil guy, right?
Yep.
He just sits and listens and gives you some good advice.
Job is to make you feel nice.
It's all about the emotions and the feelings, right? But if you're going to be a good pastor, you've got to be a good man.
Yeah.
So these characteristics of a pastor, I think, are characteristics that apply to any of us as men. So those who are listening and watching, you don't have to be a pastor for this to be applicable to you. So I hope that you would listen to these characteristics and kind of take it to heart as well. But when you think about a pastor shepherding the flock of God, taking the oversight, the care of the flock of God, I gave 5 important characteristics, and so I want to expand on those a little bit.
Thank you for watching or listening to The Political Pastor. If you want to upset hateful anti-Christian forces, like, thumbs up, subscribe, and share this with as many as you can. They really hate that. Visit our website, thepoliticalpastor.com, and say hello to us there. We respond to comments and letters on our private website where big tech can't censor it. Again, thank you.